Aloha.
Aloha.
So I'm going to speak separately on both of these HR 9 and 13. To begin with, on HR 9, I oppose this resolution.
I just want you to know that we need to get out of here by 11:15. So
I won't be that long.
Yeah, I realize that we have decision making. So can you try and keep it to about 5 minutes?
I can.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So the first point on HR 9.
I'm sorry, your name?
My name is Arthur Martirosian. I've submitted testimony.
Last name, can you spell it?
Martirosian.
In favor or against?
I'm against. I oppose.
Both?
Both, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And my point being here on HR 9, after reviewing just the topic of it, it makes it seem like, again, it's a one-sided argument for one side only. And I want to point out how Armenia, at this moment in time, is a strategic ally to the United States. We have the largest embassy, other than Iraq, in that region. It's like Club Med. I've been there before. It's huge. And we support all the operations in the Middle East from that area. So just want to point out that we are also a strategic ally, and that should be taken to note. In regards to trying to find a peaceful resolution or political resolution to the conflict, one is to look for a partner who wants to have peace. That's the important thing. You want to stop all succession of violence so you can move that next step, meet somewhere and engage. But as been said here before, there's always conflict on the contact line, where the border of Armenia and Azerbaijan and Karabakh meet. There's always fire coming in. And there's a recent incident on January 24th, a 16-year-old girl got shot. And according to Armenian Press website, they reported that just in one area of Armenia, in the northern area, which it borders Azerbaijan, there was, in 1 year, there was 1,600 violations of the ceasefire. So you want peace for some type of resolution to move forward. And one of the things I want to point out is, I think U.S. Representative Brad Sherman pointed out this best. In December 2013, an Armenian soldier died on the contact line in Nagorno Karabakh. And you can find this on his archive. He stated, Azerbaijan yet again has shown it is not serious about establishing peaceful relations with Armenia and Karabakh. Despite the request for a ceasefire during the OSCE Minsk group negotiation between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Azeri forces killed an Armenian soldier, Martirosian. The shooting was unprovoked, and the Armenian forces have respected the request for a ceasefire. The Azerbaijani action continues to harm the cause of peace. Last year, Azerbaijan supported a murderer, Ramil Safarov, who violently killed an Armenian soldier during a NATO participation for peace exercise. Azerbaijan's forces must be held accountable for the latest display of violence towards Armenia and a lack of respect for the OSCE settlement negotiations. I will continue to stand by Artsakh and Armenia in the ongoing quest for peace and security. This is a U.S. representative talking about the situation at hand on the ground. So after hearing this, I don't see how this resolution can go forward if there's a single-sided group that's looking for peace. And one point I want to come back to, Chairman Takai, you brought up the Armenian genocide of 1915 and what occurred, what's occurring is why is it not fair? Well, according to Dutch...
wait, let me just,
yes.
I never said that. What I said was the legislature passed in 2009.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, but then I'll just go on record to say that what the difference in this is. In 1915, what it was, and I could provide you guys, gentlemen, with a book written by a Dutch professor in genocide studies, that it was done in a manner to clear the Ottoman Empire of groups of Armenians, to ethnically cleanse them in order to build a middle class. That was the mentality of that. So it's not just a wartime atrocity. It was a thought-up planning to eliminate all Armenians. Now, I'd like to move on to HR Net 13.
Sure.
And one of my points with this, besides the fact that Transparency International has rated Azerbaijan 127 out of 177 countries as the most corrupt, their president, Ilham Aliyev, has been the winner of the most corrupt person in the world for 3 years running. And that's something I take to heart when I try to think about the situation. Who are we dealing with as a partner? And besides that, if you look at Human Rights Watch's World Report for Azerbaijan, it's quoted saying the Azerbaijani government's per record of freedom of expression, assembly, and association dramatically deteriorated during the year. This is in 2013. The authorities arrested dozens of political activists on bogus charges, imprisoned critical journalists, broke up several peaceful protests, and adopted legislation to further restrict fundamental freedoms. This crackdown was backed up by the election of President Aliyev by 84.5%. Besides that, one point I want to make about Khojaly is I want you to imagine if on top of Pali you're being bombed every day, and your opposition is on the high ground bombing you every day, and we are the capital of Honolulu. That's what was being bombed. The capital of Nagorno Karabakh at that time is Stepanakert, and they were being bombed every day. And for 15 days, they were warned to stop the bombing because we're losing civilians. And it was not stopped. So the Armenian military and Karabakh units surrounded Khojaly and allowed an access road out, which is part of what you do in war. You allow an exit road for civilians. Now, what transpired afterwards could be said as part of war, but I put some information in my testimony in regards to what may have actually transpired. There's one I would like to pinpoint real quickly. A month after the resignation of the first president of Azerbaijan, he went on record telling a Russian newspaper, Khojaly inhabitants who escaped, according to the paper, Khojaly inhabitants who escaped, all this was organized to dismiss me, that president. Some forces acted to discredit the president. I don't think that Armenians strictly and professionally tested similar situations could let the Azerbaijanis gain any documents which would incriminate Azerbaijan. These facts show that, and other in my testimony, that we don't know the whole story, what transpired on the ground, but we know that off some of their own people's reports, it might have been their own military shooting at their civilians for a political goal. And that's besides say for the atrocities that happened in 98 and 90 in Sumgait and Baku. So one quick point I want to make, 5 years ago, I was one of the youngest members inducted into Rotary 5 years ago. And unfortunately, I'm not there anymore. But one of the tenets we had in the Rotary was a four-way test. It was, is it the truth? Is it beneficial to all concerned? Will build goodwill and friendship? Will benefit all, is it fair to all concerned and will benefit all concerned? And using this litmus test, this means none of those. Because it's not the truth, it doesn't benefit anybody, it's not fair to both sides. So I don't see how this resolution helps any side. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Hi.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Alexander Telnov, Dr. Alexander Telnov. I hope you would find my testimony particularly informative.
Okay,
because,
your last name?
Telnov, T-E-L-N-O-V.
Okay.
I hope you will find my testimony particularly informative because I do not represent either side of this conflict, and I consider myself quite a bit of an expert on the issue because I have been following my position strongly oppose both.
Okay, great.
I have been closely following this conflict for over 25 years, and I have the benefit of having visited Azerbaijan twice in the recent past on junkets paid fully by the Azeri side as part of their caviar diplomacy effort, where they dispense hundreds of millions of dollars every year on diplomatic efforts to promote their position around the world.
Your affiliation, you're a doctor
I'm not affiliated with any organization. I represent myself only. I'm a doctor of philosophy and physics. My PhD is from the University of California, Berkeley.
And you're at UH now? You're teaching?
I live in Hawaii now. Hawaii has been my adopted home for over 5 years.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so I have submitted written testimony on HR 9 and my testimony is 8 pages. I document thoroughly how the majority of the items are in the resolution HR 9 are taken out of context. They are distortions and they are outright untruth. I also document, despite my very warm feelings to Azeri people and having friends in Azerbaijan, to me as a scientist, truth is by far the foremost important. Azerbaijan has no credible claim for Karabakh. It's no historical claim, no legal claim, and any claim that they might have had based on Joseph Stalin's 1923 stroke of pen, they abrogated that claim by engaging in a campaign of ethnic cleansing and war crimes starting in 1988. I would like to quote from the declassified CIA report, which is available online now through Freedom of Information Act. The classified CIA report in 1988 reported that gangs of Azeris stormed through the city of Sumgait, hunting down Armenians and their Azeri protectors. If an Armenian was discovered, he was knifed or worse. This is how it all started. Now, why did it start? Well, because Armenians who lived in Azerbaijan proper, about 5% of the population, they tended to be better educated, they tended to be more successful. And when the economy turned sour, people look for somebody to scapegoat. This is how it started. Then in 1989, when I came to school from vacation, we had a new history teacher. She was not part of the conflict. She's an ethnic Russian who was professor of history in Baku State University. She stayed in Baku for a year after the pogroms started, and she left the day her last Armenian neighbor, a woman who was too frail to flee, was defenestrated. So Azeris came, they threw her out of her window, they killed her, and they took her apartment. So from that day on, September 1st, 1989, I have been a very close observer of the conflict. What puzzles me, my eyes literally popped when I saw these resolutions come up, is why are they even considered by the Hawaiian legislature? What are we trying to accomplish? The spirit of aloha that we carry to the world is completely foreign to the current leadership of Azerbaijan. Just think about it. According to the counterintelligence department of the United States Department of Justice, Azerbaijan spends $8 million on political lobbying in the United States every year. It's a publicly available report on the Department of Justice website. Armenia spends zero. Now, why do you need to spend that much money to prove your point? Well, that's because your point is not credible. That's because the opinions Azerbaijan is trying to instill in the United States and other countries are distortions and untruth. I documented in my testimony that Azerbaijan is one of the most corrupt and oppressive regimes. It ranks less free than Zimbabwe and Rwanda, which committed their own genocide of 800,000 just recently. It is as free as Afghanistan or Iraq, according to Freedom House ratings. It's a hereditary dictatorship which is modeled after Assad's Syria. This is a caricature from a Turkish newspaper. Here they projected how this would happen. So this Tunisia, this is Mr. Mubarak, Gaddafi, Assad, and Aliyev. This would be the natural progression. So their bodies right here. So why are we considering this resolution? I'm a friend of both Azeri and Armenian people, and I would like them to come to peace. And unfortunately, my assessment, based on my visits to Baku, is that this is not possible in any foreseeable future. My hosts in Baku were some of the nicest people I have ever met. As soon as conversation turned to Armenia, they all started sounding, I'm sorry to say, genocidal. The only solution which is acceptable to them is zero Armenians in Nagorno Karabakh. Let me give you some recent examples. In 2005, my first visit to Baku, one of my colleagues, a lady from Eastern Europe, was mobbed by about a dozen Azeri men in downtown Baku in broad daylight because she looked Armenian. They surrounded her. and they were about to do something very bad to her. Fortunately, she was able to prove that she is actually Jewish. Garry Kasparov, the world chess champion for 15 years, is routinely denied entry to Azerbaijan for chess competitions because Azerbaijan cannot guarantee his safety. And that's despite the fact that Garry Kasparov, since the day the pogroms in Baku started, has been going out of his way to maintain neutrality on the conflict over Nagorno Karabakh. What is his crime? His crime is having an Armenian mother. And he keeps saying that he's a patriot of Azerbaijan and that he is a citizen of Baku. And yet he is denied a visa, despite being a citizen of Azerbaijan. In 2013, one of the most celebrated Azerbaijani authors, Akram Aylishi, who is 75 years old, wrote a novel, his first novel, where he touched upon the relationships between Azeris and Armenians. What is the outcome? His books were burned by mobs publicly. The president of Azerbaijan stripped him of all of his honorary titles and of the presidential pension that was awarded to him as one of the best authors in the country 10 years ago by Heydar Aliyev, the father of current president. So, given these facts, how can these people possibly live together? I don't see how this would happen. Please do not be fooled. Some people might say that what this resolution, HR 9, is trying to accomplish is to get Azeris and Armenians to talk to one another. But they've been talking for 20 years, and the talks have been stalled by Azerbaijan's continuing insistence that the framework, any framework for political settlement, would be a framework where Armenians would cede complete sovereignty of their independent country, Nagorno Karabakh, to Azerbaijan. Well, I already explained that the only consequence of this would be zero Armenians in Nagorno Karabakh. By introducing these resolutions, which were written obviously by paid political consultants, Azerbaijan is looking for moral ground to resume the war. This war already cost 35,000 lives, 100,000 wounded people, and over 1 million displaced persons. Azerbaijan is spending every year almost $4 billion on defense. To put this in contrast, the defense budget of Azerbaijan in 2014 is 1.5 times the size of the entire budget of Karabakh plus Armenia. Can you imagine a country is spending every year $26,000 per resident of Karabakh with the intention of using this weaponry to kill all of them? The population of Karabakh is 1/60th. That's 1/60. The population of Azerbaijan. I would like to ask each one of you to think about it. How is it possible that a country 1/60th the size of Azerbaijan was able to repel the aggression and actually throw Azeri regular army armed with gas bombs mounted on fighter jets, armed with Katyusha rockets? How were the civilians of Karabakh able to defeat an army 60 times their size? Well, that's because poor conscripts from Azerbaijan were not fighting for their land. Armenians in Karabakh, they were. They had nowhere to go. And this is the truth.
Can you wrap up in 2 minutes?
Yes. I would like now to very briefly touch upon the statement that Azerbaijan is a valuable ally in the war on terror. Undoubtedly, it's true. As is Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, which are even more oppressive countries. Every time you make a deal with the devil, you lose. When America made a deal with Mujahideen, it lost 20 years later. And I can go on and on and on. And I do not want the United States to be affiliated with Azerbaijan and to support their position. We should deal with every country in the world, but we should know who we're dealing with. Right now, for the record, there are actually more Armenian troops supporting the American effort in Afghanistan than there are Azeri troops. And over 100,000 Armenian Americans have served honorably in the United States military. So that particular argument, I think, is not tenable. I would like to switch now briefly to HR 13. I didn't have a chance to submit a testimony. I spent hours hearing about Khojaly from my friends in Azerbaijan when I was there. Privately and inebriated, they confessed that everybody in Azerbaijan knows that the official story is not true, but nobody is willing to talk about it. And the reason for this is that everybody is scared. Einullah Fatulayev, who is the editor-in-chief of two of the largest Azerbaijani newspapers, was imprisoned for 8 years for treason. His crime was he tried to uncover the truth about what actually happened in Khojaly. And so he wrote in his newspaper in 2005 that for part of the Khojaly inhabitants had been fired upon by our own troops, by provocateurs from the National Front of Azerbaijan battalions. The corpses have been mutilated by our own. That's what he said. And so he was imprisoned, and his colleague was murdered. Ayaz Mutalibov, who was the president of Azerbaijan at the time, he said in an interview to a Czech journalist in the aftermath of Khojaly that the murder was organized in order to discredit the president of Azerbaijan.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up. I do wish that you can present written testimony to us for HR 13, and you're more than welcome to do that.
Yes, I will try to do this.
Okay.
So, for the record, as a humanitarian, what I heard about Khojaly from my Azeri friends moved me. And before I left Baku, I laid a bouquet of flowers to the grave at the area of Shahids in Baku, because those people died in vain. But to recognize the murder of these innocent civilians, which was unfortunately a part of war, part of freeing the citizens of Karabakh from shelling, continuous shelling. Every minute for 3 months, a bomb was blowing up, killing civilians in Stepanakert in early 1992. Unfortunately, this happens. To put things in perspective, in Shushi, in the former capital of Karabakh, Azeris killed 10,000 Armenians in one day in 1920. And to recognize this tragedy in a special resolution would be to create moral ground for Azerbaijan to reopen the war, and it would give credibility to an aggressor.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.